This is Jeffrey Wright. You're listening to The Story. This season celebrates the unknown backstories of African-American trailblazers that changed the world. You'll get to walk a mile in their shoes, and their identity is secret until the climax.
Hey everyone, this is Stephanie from The Mission. This season of The Story is brought to you exclusively by our friends at Salesforce, a company that is committed to building a path toward equality for all.
This is the story of a woman who is working to help make humankind a multi-planetary species. Today's story is called The Woman and the Starship. And now, on to the story. There was no going back now. She checked the straps around her waist and shoulders one more time to ensure that they were secure. Next, she glanced up and down the rows of buttons, lights, and switches. Everything was fine, and she heard Commander Gibson radio their status in. Sweat covered her palms, and she could feel them shaking. She leaned back and closed her eyes. Almost 30 years ago, she was a little girl on the south side of Chicago. During the day, she would play outside. Her clothes were hand-me-downs and her knees were covered with scrapes. At night, she would look out her bedroom window at the stars. Her room always had a stack of library books. She would read every story she could find about women scientists, adventurers, and heroes. It was the 1960s, and the young girl watched the civil rights protests erupting in her city. It was a confusing but exciting time. She wondered, what did her future hold? Sometimes when she looked up at the stars, she swore she knew. Adults and teachers would ask her what she dreamed of being. She politely informed them that she didn't dream of anything. She would become a scientist. What about a nurse or teacher, they would ask. No, I intend to be a scientist. The conversations with adults usually stopped at that point, but the girl didn't care. She knew what she wanted, and she knew the steps she would take to get there. She put in the work at school, and soon she had skipped 2 grades. Colleges fought to make her offers. At 16, she received a scholarship offer that she accepted. It was to Stanford University, where she studied chemical engineering. The courses were hard. Being the only woman in her class was even harder. She found relief from her studies by practicing dance. Later, she would learn Swahili. When she graduated from Stanford, she faced a tough choice. Would she keep dancing or go to medical school and become a doctor? At night, she would look up at the sky. The stars, planets, and the moon piqued her curiosity. As a child, she followed the Apollo missions, discussed Einstein's theory of relativity with her uncle, and worked on complex equations for fun. She enrolled in Cornell University, earned a doctorate, and then worked in a hospital in Los Angeles for a year. Again, she was unsatisfied. She was looking for adventures. She was ready to boldly go where no one had been before. She signed up for the Peace Corps and soon found the adventure she craved. She worked in West Africa for 3 years, helping battle disease and teaching medicine. She implemented guidelines for public health and safety issues and helped set up volunteer job placement and training sites. She also started researching new ways to develop vaccines. Years later, she returned to the United States. After taking time off to recharge, she found herself, again, looking up at the stars. She picked up the phone and dialed a number she had been thinking about for a long time. As the other line rang, her confidence grew. "Hello, Johnson Space Center, how can I help you?" came the voice on the other end. "Hello," she replied. "My name is Dr. Mae Jemison, and I would like an application for the astronaut program." In 1987, Mae Jemison was one of 15 applicants selected for the astronaut program. It had been less than a year since the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion killed 7 NASA crew members. It would have been understandable for her to change her mind. But instead, Mae endured vigorous training, mental and physical evaluations, simulated space flights, and zero-gravity preparations. She even overcame a lifelong fear of heights. By 1992, she was ready when the call came asking her to be a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Mae listened to Commander Gibson give the final approval, and the countdown sequence began. She opened her eyes. The pressure built across her chest as the rocket ship reached its maximum velocity. Alarms were going off, indicator lights were blinking, but she wasn't scared. With the Endeavour safely out of Earth's atmosphere, May unstrapped herself and floated toward the window. Outside was Earth, and beyond that was space and the stars. She was among them, finally. She had become one of the heroines from her books, doing seemingly impossible things. May was now the first woman of color to reach space. On her mission, she brought a poster of dancer Judith Jamison, a Bundu statue to represent the West African Women's Society, and a flag for the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the oldest African-American sorority in the U.S. In total, May logged 190 hours, 30 minutes, and 23 seconds in space. And while she was there, she finally got back to dancing. Looking back on it, she said, "It felt very free. I could spin 10 times around, which I can't do here on Earth. I could do wonderful arabesques and other leg lifts. I could do wonderful leaps, but I didn't come down. It was great." After returning to Earth, May left NASA and dedicated her life to helping others achieve their goals. She established the Jemison Foundation and the 100-Year Starship program, aimed at creating a starship capable of providing human travel beyond our solar system within the next 100 years. May even appeared on her favorite television show, Star Trek. She was the first real astronaut ever to make a cameo on the program. When she talks to audiences and groups, her advice is powerful. Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations. If you adopt their attitudes, then the possibility won't exist because you've already shut it out. You can hear other people's wisdom, but you've got to reevaluate the world for yourself. So what are your goals? What are your intentions? How can you find those adventures uniquely suited for your experiences and background? May's story is proof that following your passions while at the same time working ridiculously hard to learn high-demand skills is never a bad strategy. When you combine that with long-term visions and goals like making human life multi-planetary, the sky isn't the limit, the stars are. That's her story. What's yours going to be?
Thanks for listening to The Story. If you love this story and want more, tap subscribe to make sure you don't ever miss an episode. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Salesforce. Learn more about how they are creating a workplace where everyone can be their full, authentic selves by empowering employee resource groups like BOLDforce for Black employees and allies to lead the way as equality trailblazers. Salesforce created a special report called The Impact of Equality and Values-Driven Business, which you can read by clicking the link in our show notes. The story is created by The Mission, a veteran-owned media company and podcast network. To get more stories like this one, you can subscribe to our daily newsletter at mission.org. The Mission creates custom podcasts and original content in partnership with world-class companies like Salesforce. To learn more about how you can sponsor an original podcast, head over to mission.org/studios.